back with the patron-only portion of the show. This is John Cullen. Welcome to Hypothetically Speaking. We are exploring the Butler assassination attempt venue. This is the Butler Farm Show location, and this is the location in the 3D model that Bill put together. And what we're going to be starting with is sort of the perspective from the shooter. We were listening to some footage of the investigation, the Congressional Committee investigation. And one of the things that Corey Mills said was he was up on the roof and was in that position. He went to the spot where the kid was found, where the body was located, and he lied down in that position. And so one of the things I want to start with is sort of something that got my attention a while ago, which is that this location on the rooftop where the kid is, and you guys can see AGR here in the model. You can see these ballistic lines, the yellow lines going towards Trump and the podium, and the orientation of the kid on the roof. So the kid is not oriented parallel to the seams. This is called a standing seam roof. And he's not parallel to the seams in the model if he's aiming towards Trump. And the challenge here is that the kid was not found in this orientation. So he's not found with his body aiming that way. He's found with his body parallel to the grooves. And when your body is parallel to the grooves or the standing seam stuff, if you lie down that way, you're aiming at the counter snipers on the far rooftop, not at Trump. And so that introduced this whole new twist that was this kid actually shooting this way towards Trump and everybody else, or was this kid's assignment to shoot straight ahead towards these counter snipers that were on the far roof? So the guy up here on this far rooftop, this is David King, and I think it's John Marciniak, are the two guys up here on the far rooftop. The guys on the near rooftop are getting shot at from the tree line, so that's a whole different topic. But is the kid on the roof, who they call Thomas Crooks, is this kid actually shooting at Trump, or was he shooting at the counter snipers? Well, his body isn't found oriented this way. And when you lie down in those grooves, you are looking directly at the counter snipers on the far rooftop. All right, so that introduces this twist. And so the question then becomes, we hear bang, bang, bang. We hear 3 shots, and Trump's already hit. Trump is hit on the first audible shot that we hear. Trump's ear has been hit already. And then we hear bang, 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 bang. Is it possible at all that the bang, 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 that second barrage of 5 shots, was the kid on the roof shooting at these other counter snipers, shooting at David King and Marciniak? Is that possible? And that would mean that maybe the kid on the roof only took 5 shots, hypothetically speaking, and they were all in this direction towards the other counter snipers. We know that the counter snipers on the closest roof couldn't see him because of the tree. So he used the tree and the position of the tree to block the line of sight from those guys. We know that. But was he shooting at the other guys on the far rooftop? Well, it certainly lines up with them, that's for sure. And lining up in that standing seam roof to shoot 20 degrees off to your right is not so simple. All right, so this is a little bit of a challenge. This is a little bit of a problem. Is that the kid's body is not found in this orientation. It's not found like this, aiming off to the right. We never see him photographically aiming off to the right. So what I want to explore is this possibility that maybe the first 3 shots did not come from the rooftop. And one of the things that supports that is the crack thump measurements. The crack thump measurements are slightly different for the first 3 shots than they are for the next 5. Chris Martenson said that doesn't really matter. But it does. I mean, that's why we do crack thump measurements. And, 0.221 is not the same as 0.215, right? Those are different numbers. That's why we use numbers, right? So if they're different, well, how different are they? And so we're going to take a look at those crack thump measurements a little bit more closely in another episode this weekend. But it turns out that when you do the crack thump measurements from the podium, that it doesn't reach, the first 3 shots don't reach all the way to the kid on the roof. It only reaches to this wall of the building, which is about 135 yards. So to get from the podium to the kid is 152 yards. And the second, barrage of crack thumps, do they match up with that? What about the first set of crack thumps, the first 3? So if the crack thumps don't reach to 152 yards and they only reach to 135 yards, and the kid's 152 yards away, well, that introduces a whole new twist, which is that maybe the kid on the roof wasn't the one that took the first 3 shots. So if those first 3 shots were heading towards Trump, because we know it hit his ear, it would have to be very close to where this kid was. And it's 135 yards away, which is right at the edge of the building. So where might that put us? Let's take a look. So hypothetically, if a shot was coming from this vicinity here, near the building, in other words, not from the rooftop, but near the wall, was there anyone in this vicinity potentially firing anything? I don't know. Clay Higgins says the windows don't open. But Clay Higgins also was worried about the land and the trajectory and how much, is the landscape okay and all that, and he was worried about that. Well, we have all that. We have all the ground height data here, and so let me share that with you guys, just so you know I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt. All the land height information is in the model, right? I tend to suppress it because it busies things up, and I don't really need to know what the ground height is at every single measurement. But it's in the system. It's in the model. So all this ground height chit-chat from Clay Higgins that he's worried that we don't have the ground heights correct. No, we actually paid for this, Clay. And unless you paid for similar data, I would suggest that our data is better than your data. And I haven't seen your model yet, Clay, so maybe you should pipe down, bro. All right, so there is your ground height data. I'm going to turn it off because, again, I find it too busy and it slows the model down when it's displayed. It has to redraw that every time. All right, so let's go back to what if the first shots didn't come from the roof? What if the first shots came from somewhere else? And is that possible? Is that even a possibility, right? That could happen. All right, so let's take a look at that. Right now, we're looking at all the shots coming from the rooftop. Now, I'm going to switch the camera over here to what we call podium cam. I'll go to the Copenhagen cam now, and we'll see what it looks like from Jim's perspective. All right, let me zoom out a little bit. So from where Jim Copenhagen was standing, if all the shots were coming from the roof, and everybody got hit with shots that came from the roof, this is kind of what it would look like, give or take. Okay? I'm not so sure that that's what happened, though. I don't know that we have ballistic evidence that that's what happened. So without ballistic evidence that all the shots came from the rooftop, did they? In other words, we don't have recovered bullets from David Dutch. We don't have recovered bullets from Jim Copenhagen. So is it possible? Well, let's take a look. Let's see if it's possible for the first 3 shots to have come from somewhere else. So I'm manipulating the model a little bit here, guys. Bear with me. Here we go. All right. So we've got these first 3 shots coming from, right now, coming from AGR. Okay, from the kid on the roof. What if that's not what happened? What if the first 3 shots didn't come from there? All right, let's take a look at that. What if the first 3 shots, let me turn off these yellow lines now. All right, and I'm going to turn off Copenhagen. I'm going to turn off these rooftop shots. And you're seeing the yellow lines disappear right now. All right, so now there's no shots from the roof. Now, what if the first shot that hits Trump, hypothetically, came from the window below? I know the windows don't open. Let's say somebody removed the glass, hypothetically, took the glass out, shot, and then put the glass back. Hypothetically, would a shot from that window at Trump's ear have been, does that line up? And the answer is yes, it does line up. So you could conceivably take a shot from the window, hit Trump in the ear. Now, where would that round go? Well, let's take another camera view here. And let's see if we can see where this round would have gone. So this is the David Dutch camera. And this is David Dutch's perspective. And if the shot were to have come from the window and hit Trump in the ear, it would have been very, very close to David Dutch. Would have passed right by these guys. Okay, had that happened. Here's from Copenhagen's perspective, same thing. Here's from the podium. It's actually hitting Trump in the ear from that location. All right. So let's go back to this overview camera. So if the shot came from there, now let me go, I've got another camera here from where, I think we got a Corey comparatory camera, yeah. So from Corey's perspective, looking at the president, if it hit the president's ear, that round may have hit David Dutch, possibly. All right, so it's possible that the round that David Mills captured on the photograph hit David Dutch. Now, David Dutch doesn't look like he gets hit till the second shot. All right, so that's the issue there, is if David Dutch doesn't get hit until the second shot, well, right, then this is not it. So then this round hits Trump's ear and then disappears if it's fired from the window below. All right, let's continue with some more shots. Let's say that the shot that hits Corey Comparatori is fired from the window below. All right, if that happened, could that happen, and what would that trajectory look like? And let's go take a look at that. All right, so if the shot that hits Corey Comparatori was taken from the window below and not the rooftop, right, what does that look like? And that's what we're seeing here. Let me orient this a little bit differently for you guys. All right, so these now we're looking at 2 different shots taken from the window, potentially, again, hypothetically. Right? Might that have happened? Where one of them hits Corey Comparatori in the head, one of them hits Donald Trump in the ear. Is that possible? Any other shots? Is it possible that the shot that hit David Dutch came from the window? Well, we put that in, and it's right next to the other shot. So the David Dutch shot, if it came from the window, is very close to the other shot. All right. What about Copenhagen? One of them hits his tricep and grazes it. The other one hits his liver. All right, so those kind of line up a little bit. And then what about the hydraulic line? Was that? It could have been. So the hydraulic line could have been shot from the window. All right. And then, let's see, this is Trump we have already. And then the lucky guy in the corner. So could the shots conceivably that were towards Trump, towards Dutch, towards Copenhagen, could those shots conceivably have come from the window below the kid? Or maybe just 3 shots. Maybe the shot that hit Corey Comparatori, maybe the shot that hits Trump, maybe one other shot comes from the window. And then the other 5 that we hear are from the kid on the roof shooting at the other counter snipers on the other rooftop down here. Is that what we're hearing? Because it sounds significantly different, the first 3 from the next 5. Depending on who recorded it, different microphones on different phones pick it up differently. Is that because the phone is oriented differently? Somebody's holding it differently? Hard to say, right? We're not being given all the evidence by the FBI or the Secret Service. They're stonewalling everybody. But what we know is that the Congressional Investigation Committee's not reached out. Does not appear that a shot from the window would hit the telehandler. Let's take a look at that. It's not really lining up with the telehandler very well. All right, so does that mean anything? Absolutely positively no, but we know that the oil stain from the telehandler indicates that the round came from the tree line. And it's consistent with that, so it's supportive of that concept. So what I'm introducing here is this idea that potentially the first 3 shots came from below the kid on the roof. Then the kid on the roof takes 5 shots at the counter snipers on this far rooftop down here and misses. His 5 shots miss. Zalaponi potentially, maybe, fires a shot. There's also this potential, this whole Zalaponi thing is made up to cover that 9th shot. Because if the 9th shot was a 488-yard shot at somebody, let's say on the water tower, they don't want to tell you that. They'd rather tell you Zalaponi saved the day and shot at the kid and what have you. But again, we don't see any recoil at Zalaponi's shoulder when he fires the weapon. We don't see any gun smoke when he fires the weapon. Don't see any recoil. Don't see any barrel rise on the front of his gun. The front of the gun doesn't come up. Shoulder doesn't move. And the medical examiner testified that the kid wasn't hit. Did the kid lift his head up? That may have happened, right? The kid may have just lifted his head up and said, what the hell was that? And that's when David King shot him in the mouth. But if the kid lifted his head up, how would he be aiming at David King, right? So when we look at the 3D model, the way the kid is oriented when he's shot in the mouth, it appears he is aiming his weapon at the guy who shoots him. So if he lifts his head up to look around, it's not really consistent with getting shot the way we see, the entry and exit wound in the 3D model here. So this is for consideration. Is there a shooter in that window, potentially, hypothetically speaking, that removed the glass and replaced it with glazing caulk, given that these are, casement windows that do not open, according to Clay Higgins? And Clay Higgins was really concerned about the ground level heights, and yet we're using photogrammetry to sync all this up. So that's like a non-issue. I mean, everything here is as accurate as it's going to be. And in fact, I'll challenge anybody to produce a more accurate model. Right now, this appears to be the most accurate working model of the crime scene from the Butler assassination attempt 1 year ago this weekend. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining, Hypothetically Speaking.